Through all of this, the court said that they've reviewed all the evidence, they've listened to witnesses, and they've even gone through documents which were seized on the individuals. They say this is a solid case.
Well, that's what they say. And that's what they have been saying in all cases that they have been reviewing for the last 4 years. But the reality is that, in my estimation, that the evidence unsealed no evidence. The fact is that the state should have established an evidence, inculpatory evidence, and it failed. Whereas the defense have established strong evidence that proves the innocence of the defendants. But again, I mean, all these trials, sham trials, we knew the results long before they started.
The critics of this would say, where is the evidence of involvement of any or naming of any intelligence agents? Where was the evidence presented to show money has been exchanged? Are there a lot of gaps and holes in this when you start to look through what's missing?
Huge black holes, loopholes everywhere. Actually, the long speech, which is strange, a bit strange for a judge to give that speech, kind of a long speech, before pronouncing the sentence, is actually more or less the same text of the indictment made up by the prosecutor, and most probably is going to be the sentence explanation. And that has been the trend during the last 4 years by judges. It's a copy and paste. They take the indictments and they just remove the title, indictment, and they put the sentence, title. That's it. That's what they have been trying. That's what they have been doing during the last 4 years. Unfortunately,
but international human rights groups have criticized the Egyptian judicial process. You'll recall, of course, the mass trials which ended with mass death sentences after a matter of minutes. Is there any sign, I mean, is this the end of the process, or any opportunity perhaps for the courts to re-look at this?
What do you mean by
well, what happens next now?
Oh, as far as this case is concerned?
Yes.
Well, this, according to the procedural law in Egypt, this is considered or is called the final sentence.
Well, it's final for the first group, right? Let's clarify things. There's two groups of people, some of whom got a death sentence in the last round. Is that for them final? Then we'll talk about the other group.
No, the whole lot. The whole lot. It's final sentence for all the defendants. But yet they have another opportunity when they go to the Court of Cassation. The Court of Cassation, if the Court of Cassation approved the same sentence, then the sentence gets to be permanent. So there are two levels of sentences here. The permanent, which is the one that we just had today, and the final and the permanent, which we are going to have in the Court of Cassation, because all the defendants are going to go for the Court of Cassation. But what it occurs to me, the whole thing comes across as if the Lady Justice in Egypt have all of a sudden became not blindfolded. The Lady Justice in Egypt is actually seeing and watching. She's not blindfolded anymore, versus an executive which has been blinded by both power and wealth.
All right, now if we start with the case of the ousted, deposed President Mohamed Morsi, he's been given 2 sentences, we understand today, life in prison and 15 years in prison. But this is in addition to, of course, earlier sentences and convictions against him, right?
Yeah.
Now, where does for him, there seems very little hope or appetite for him to ever see the light of day.
Well, according to what we see, yes, I think it's next to impossible for him to see the light of the day. But don't forget that all these trials, all these cases are politicized. And the only hope for President Morsi to see the light of the day is that the whole political scene gets to be changed. That's the only thing, but
Right.
nothing is going to change through that law that they use to convict innocent people.
We've also, talking of innocent people, we've had the sentencing against Al Jazeera journalists Ala Sablan and Ibrahim Hilal. Those decisions and those moves against journalists have been criticized by international journalistic organizations. We know the history of the harassment of journalists in the last few years in Egypt. The raids which were carried out against some of the journalist syndicates in the last few months, and so on and so forth. Putting those signals together, still a very uncompromising position that the regime is taking towards freedom of the press. Is that the bottom line here?
Definitely, like in bodies, it's the first thing that dictatorship target is the immune system of the society, which is independent and strong media. So as the viruses target the immune system in the body, dictatorships, they target the immune system for societies, which is strong media. So it makes sense for such wave against the journalists in Egypt and by that dictatorial regime. For me, it makes sense.
All right. I mean, putting all of this together then, I mean, what is it that these people can do now? What's the next step for them?
When you say the people,
For-
you mean the defendants?
Yes, for the defendants now.
There's no other way than to go for the Court of Cassation. And in my estimation, the Court of Cassation, they still have hope in the Court of Cassation. The Court of Cassation, the formation of the Court of Cassation is completely different than the Court of Appeals that they stood before.
And what is the likelihood of the history of decisions by the Court of Cassation that they might overturn this?
Much better than these kind of courts that we have. As I was just saying, the formation of the Court of Cassation is completely different, and the court, the bench, has 7 members, 7 judges instead of 3, and the selection of the judges in the Court of Cassation is very, very meticulous, and they are really handpicked, and there's no bias in selecting the judges in the Court of Cassation. So, and that is why for the last year we have seen many sentences by the Court of Appeals gets to be suspended and revoked by the Court of Cassation. So this.
What happens then after that? If a sentence is revoked or suspended, does that mean they're free to go, or does that mean they go back?
According to the procedural law, the Court of Cassation has the right, they have a variety of choices. Either to drop the whole charges, all the charges, drop the whole case altogether, or to order a retrial of the same case before a different court. So it sends the same case to another court to review it, to investigate it.
All right, let's thank very much Yehia Ghanem here in the studio for that. We can